Okay, what do you do after you get into a fight with your spouse? You make up. What do you do after you get into a fight with your spouse? You make up. That's what you do. I want to tell you something. People often accuse me of presenting very idealized versions of things. I paint very beautiful pictures, a perfect world, perfect solutions that are often not that real, not so simple, you know. In other words, people get married, and in the course of their marriage, they learn faults about themselves, and they also learn faults about their spouses. And these things, plus their living together with these faults, contributes to inexactitudes, imperfections in their relationship and their marriage, which people accept. In other words, the marriage is not perfect. Yeah? Nothing is perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. But I think one of the things that Torah tries to do very principally, I guess that's the right word, is tell you how it's supposed to be. Torah is not telling you how it's supposed to be because Torah thinks that every person is going to have a perfect marriage or perfect parenting, perfect Yiras Shamayim. It's because if the Torah tells you to be perfect, Torah is giving you the option to be the best you could possibly be. But if Torah does what is so often done in our world, that because we want to be sensitive to things that are not perfect, you present a compromised version, you take away from the person the possibility of being the best they could be because you're giving him a watered down version because you don't want to hurt his feelings. So I think the right thing to do is to describe how it's supposed to be. And then, of course, in reality, everybody figures out how to make it as close to how it's supposed to be in their lives, even though I wouldn't say very often, I would say always, nobody has perfect, unless you're a tzaddik and your wife is a tzaddikas. I tell my students that you're not married till you have your first good fight. And I'll tell you why. Because when people first get married, there's a lot of acting, especially from people. You first get to know the person you marry after you get married. You don't live with them before. And the very beginning is a very exciting time. It's a time that everybody's trying to be at their best behavior, especially if you're young and inexperienced. You have these very unrealistic ideas about love and generosity and delusions of reciprocity, which usually don't work out as we expect them to. So you behave, and you tolerate. And when you have a first good fight, that's the first time you're honest with each other. It's the first time you say, okay, I'm not acting anymore. I don't like this. Or I don't like that, or whatever the case is. All couples argue. The word fight is a very strong word. And of course, I'm assuming we don't mean Chas v'Shalom hurting each other physically. Words. We learn how to be married from our parents. I always say that the two most difficult things you're ever going to do in your life, there's no school for. You can't go to school to learn how to parent. You can't go to school to learn how to partner, how to be married. You learn it from your home. Now, if you liked how your home was, you want to duplicate what you saw in your home. If you didn't like how your home was, you promised never to be like your home was, and you usually end up being quite similar to the home in which you grow up. And it's a process of learning how to be married. And the process of learning how to be married is punctuated by these moments where people tell each other what they really think and feel. And obviously, what people do after they have a fight is they make up. The old cliche, you don't go to sleep until you make up. However, that is carried through, but a lot of couples are particular about that, not to go to sleep angry at one another. It's a very good idea. But you have to learn lessons. If you don't learn lessons, the fights don't serve a purpose. And to be honest, the worst thing that happened to a couple is they should stop fighting. Because stopping the fighting means they've resigned. They've stopped making their demands. You have to learn. And as I've said in the previous segment, the hardest part of marriage is changing yourself. I mean, in life in general, and in marriage in particular, one of the biggest things you need to do is accept. You have to accept your partner. You have to accept yourself and your limitations. You have to accept your relationship. You have to accept your reality. And you have to grow. And you have to learn lessons. And you grow and you learn lessons from these fights. When difference between a couple boils over and they express very directly and very emotionally their feelings. So people are hurt. And the nature of human beings, people are hurt is they push back, right? You criticize me. If you want me to do something for you, the worst way to ask me to do it is to say it critically because now I don't want to do it. But then a day passes, and 2 days pass, and 3 days pass, and you calm down. And if you have seichel, and you want your marriage to work, right? You like yourself enough to like your marriage, which is pretty commonsensical. You say, okay, now that we're not upset anymore, what lessons do I need to learn? Not what lessons does she need to learn, what lessons do I need to learn? Because that's all I can fix. And over time, couples learn each other. They learn what they can expect, they learn what they cannot expect. They learn what works to motivate their spouse in a positive way, what doesn't work to motivate their spouse in a positive way. And they fight less and less. But they only fight less and less if they work on learning the lessons from the last fight. And then over time, they learn how to manage their relationship in a way that's accepting enough and meaningful enough and loving enough and rewarding enough for the marriage to work. But a couple that doesn't fight unless they're like holy people is not married. You disagree, you say what you feel, you get upset, you get hurt, and then you make it better. You make it better not by saying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's very important, by the way. It's very important to say I'm sorry. Really, to say, by the way, to say I'm sorry, and especially to say I was wrong, which for so many people is so hard to do, is absolutely critical. It means so much to your spouse just to hear, I made a mistake. Some people say, you tell me every day I made a mistake, stop making mistakes and stop admitting it. But the ability for a person to say, I made a mistake, I was wrong, I'm sorry, is very, very, very important. And then you try to learn lessons, and you try to grow, become better.